Hello there, and welcome to the Randy Cross podcast. We've got a fun little show for you. I believe it's going to be something you will enjoy, but we're going to start on something that's a bit of a downer. It always is. A sports legend passed the other day. When I saw the story, it was talking about Marvin Hagler and who he was and some of his better fights, and kind of as a throwaway line at the end. They mentioned it had something to do with his taking the vaccine for this COVID thing. But then the story just kind of went away. He was pretty amazing. And I can tell you that from personal experience. I was at Caesar's Palace the night of the Hagler-Hearns fight. That was, and people always say, well, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, whatever the whole thing lasted. It was unlike any fight I've ever been at. These two guys were just trying to destroy each other from the jump. Looked like they had a couple of times with the way these guys are getting tagged. But, arguably the best round of boxing ever is that first round of that fight. This guy was an incredible fighter who fought to his own standard. His last fight was against Sugar Ray Leonard, that he thought he got the fight stolen from him by the officials. And I would agree with him. But it's sad to note, but Marvin Hagler at 66 years old did pass away just this last weekend. All right. Coming up on the show here is going to be an interview with Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports. Everything college football, everything college sports in general. So without any hesitation, and just to sort of get this thing moving, let's go to the interview with Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports. Okay, as promised, we're joined now by Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports and CBSSports.com. Dennis covers the wonderful world of college football, and like I have said the last couple of weeks, don't forget college football is back, and we've got plenty of football action going on. And when it comes to news, Dennis has coverage of most of that. Dennis, welcome.
Randy, thanks for having me on again. It's great to be here.
It's great. It's good to hear from you. You're the first guy I thought of with all the stuff that's been going on, not only the games that have happened, but the name, image, and likeness, so much stuff. But so let's go down and start out with, is there anything like new going on today that we can talk about?
Yeah, I just filed a story. The NCAA Football Oversight Committee has recommended to the NCAA Council that the dead period for recruiting end May 31st. It's been extended 8 times, the latest in February to May 31st, at which time coaches and recruits would not have seen each other in person for 14 and a half months due to COVID, obviously. But because things are clearing up, infections are down, obviously, and the vaccine is out, they are saying it's safe enough now to, at that point, beginning June 1st, you would have on-campus visits. You could conduct camps, and every school would be, really, it would be up to them how far they could go. In fact, some campuses aren't even open, but and that's the decision the council will make. We don't know what decision they will make, but this recommendation from the Football Oversight Committee carries a lot of weight, because this is the way these sort of things come up through the chain, through the food chain, for the NCAA to consider. So that's pretty big news in the recruiting space.
Oh yeah, I think that's great stuff. It's I get very sort of touchy about the whole normal use of that word, but it's at least a edging back towards what we're used to. Let's put it that way.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, on other fronts, the name, image, and likeness. Well, how should we take some of the news that's come out about that? Because it really seems like the college football world is trying to adapt and trying to move towards compensation in that.
Yeah, it's going at a dizzying pace, Randy. There seems to be something new every day, but it should be noted in the context that nothing will move formally until the NCAA establishes legislation, and that won't happen until probably after late June. Now, that is when that Supreme Court case appeal is being heard from the NCAA and the 11 conferences. It's 11 because the WAC was playing football back then when this case started. Uh, to rescind the Ninth Circuit court's decision that education-based benefits can be unlimited to athletes. And the NCAA is losing its mind because they think that schools are going to start buying cars for quarterbacks because they live 10 miles off campus to get to school. And there is some of that. But, what the plaintiffs are saying, put your money where your mouth is. These are educational based benefits. If a kid needs a computer and he needs a good one, get it for him. So the NCAA have made this, well, both parties have made this into a giant antitrust versus NCAA amateurism fight, to the point that I think it was a week ago last Friday, there were, or maybe it was last week, there were 15 amicus briefs filed. What an amicus brief is, it's a friend of the court brief, in this case, friendly to the plaintiffs, the players, Alston in this case, supporting the case against the NCAA, saying, not only are NCAA rules on trial, but the very idea of antitrust is on trial. And the Sherman Antitrust Act, as most people know from their history class, was enacted in 1901 to bust monopolies. I don't have to tell you about big trains, big oil back then. That's where this came from.
Not to mention our current spate of dealing with big tech, who may qualify.
So this is a shout back. This is a clap back at a conservative court. Trump's, if you will, it is a conservative Supreme Court that, hey, be careful what you're considering here, because this is more than a century of antitrust law you're considering overturning. And I won't go into the specifics. This is just the high points. But it's, and then you have the fact that multiple states now have bills or pending bills upcoming that are all different, that the NCAA, if they don't enact legislation by July 1st, is going to have to fight on a piecemeal basis.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole in this one, but when it comes to Title IX and so-called equitable ways of doing this, is there any hope that they can devise some kind of system that does that and still allows for the extra benefits, which, I mean, let's be honest, every sport has its stars, and those guys from a name, image, and likeness standpoint are going to generate more attention.
Yeah, the Title IX piece is really complicated, and no one's kind of figured out how to get around it. Because in the case of, I believe it's Alston, the case I just referred to, I believe that only impacts football and men's basketball. Well, what's going to happen to all these other sports, the minor sports? The NCAA sponsors, I think, 89 championships altogether. And so there is a Title IX impact there. If those players can get unlimited educational benefits, then what about women's volleyball? Or I don't have to tell you. So that's separate. That's something that's going to have to be figured out. The Supreme Court will rule how it rules, and then whatever comes out of that is going to have to be figured out on a separate basis. But the whole NIL thing, yes, is got Title IX implications. If a school is building an infrastructure to help athletes take advantage of Title IX, and several of them are, I mean, giant, I'll just say infrastructure. They've partnered with marketing firms to do this. They had better provide every piece of money and opportunity for the women as they do the men. And there's a giant untold story here about the opportunities women can have. There was a story, I think it was an ESPN.com, about the Cavender twins. They play basketball at Fresno State, and their social media accounts have just blown up. I don't even know if Fresno State basketball's in the women's tournament, but they're very, very popular. They could earn, I think the estimate was $500,000 on social alone per year. And there are other examples. I think they're going to be, we know some women have giant Instagram accounts just for being students, men
Yeah.
too, but I'm talking about the opportunities for women, and those are out there.
Yeah, it's going to be, like you said, it's a very complicated issue. Another issue in college football world, when I was a junior in high school getting recruited, there was a football game that happened, and it's arguably, people say, is the greatest football game ever, and maybe the greatest play of Johnny Rodgers' punt return. Nebraska and Oklahoma. And in my mind, it's one of the things that they really lost when Nebraska went to the Big Ten. How do you not play that game? Well, they scheduled one, and now it looks like they're not going to play it. Or is that going away? What are you hearing there?
Well, no, it's going to be played. This bubbled up Friday when my friend Brett McMurphy put out a tweet that said, Nebraska is looking for a game to replace Oklahoma on September 18th. Well, first start with the fact that in the industry, it's unheard of to do anything like that 6 months before a game. This contract was signed in 2012, Randy.
Yeah.
And it's been celebrated since then, as that game will be the 50th anniversary of the game of the century. Joe Castiglione, the AD, who's going to host the game, is so excited about it. They're going to have all the old guys down there. They're going to have things around the game. Anyway, it turns out that's true. I jumped on it right away and confirmed Brett's reporting. Scott Frost, at least Scott Frost, if not AD Bill Moose at Nebraska, we're considering, and we're actively pursuing teams to replace Oklahoma. New Mexico State was contacted. Old Dominion was contacted. There have been some.
There's a fair trade.
Yeah, there's a fair trade. And at the end of the day, it was so Nebraska could get an easy W and more likely get to a bowl game to save Scott Frost's job. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The problem there is it's dirty pool to start doing it 6 months out, as I said. And then the excuse, and the Nebraska put out a release at the end of the day, because they had been outed. This was true. They had been doing this. That said they were seeking an 8th game because of COVID ravaged Lincoln, needed the business to get back on its feet. Well, that doesn't hold any water, because if you're going to do that, the first thing you do is you call Oklahoma and notify them. That didn't happen. I talked to Joe Castiglione.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you want to, contribute to, COVID ravaged Lincoln, and you're going to break the contract, you take the $1 or $2 million you're going to have to pay Oklahoma, and you match it and you give it to Lincoln. That's for starters. But the game is on. It's going to be played. Nebraska reaffirmed their intent to play the game. And it just looks slimy and creepy to me that you would try to do something like that at this late date to get a win. You're Nebraska. Yeah. I mean, this game goes back. I don't have to tell you about the tradition of this game. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like you said, it came across when I first saw all the stories involved, your follow-up and everything else. The great word, slimy.
Yeah.
It just didn't pass the sniff test. Let's put it that way.
No. And it's too bad. Scott Frost is going into year 4, and it hasn't worked at all so far. And he does need a bowl game. But let's look at it this way, Randy. You're okay. Yeah. Is Nebraska likely to get beat down there this year and beat bad? Yeah, probably. But you're telling recruits, we're not backing down. We're going to schedule games like this every year. In fact, we get them back at our place in 22, and we're going to kick their butt.
Yeah.
You use it as a recruiting tool. You've used it already. So, yeah.
Oh, I love it. And my last thing, Deion Sanders, prime time, is now officially in coaching Jackson State, and they're off to a pretty good start.
Yeah.
He's generating a lot of real positive stuff. How do you look at this whole? It's no longer an experiment. This whole experience and what he's doing there.
It's really refreshing to me, because we're talking about a Hall of Famer with no real previous coaching experience. He coached his sons in high school, who doesn't need to do it. Starting as a coach at the FCS level, which is pretty significant. And when I talked to him, I tried to, draw him out on what, is this the beginning of something? What do you want to do? Do you want to move up to a Power 5? And he didn't really answer it. At its base, he wants to help HBCUs, and they do need help. They do need funding. They do need attention, and he's helped brought that, absolutely. So I talked to him, I think it was last week. And so Dion is Dion. I go, Dion, what do I call you? Coach Dion, Neon Dion? He goes, Coach Prime. That's what they call me. Well, Coach Prime. Coach Prime, that happens to be, Randy, his branded line of clothing that he wears on the sidelines. So there's something to that. And to get to him, you have to go to his Santa Monica-based marketing firm that is partnered with Snoop Dogg on Joker's Wild. So we got to know what's going on here. He's a brand, but he's also a coach. He's reached these kids there. I didn't check yesterday. They played yesterday. I don't know if they won over the weekend, but they were 2-0.
Yeah, they're 3-0, Dennis.
They're 3-0. Yeah,
43-7.
Good. So look, the guy can coach a little bit, and good for him.
And that's the one thing I think all fans and everybody realized Dion's a brand. He's been a brand. Yeah. Heck, he was a brand when he was at Florida State doing what he was doing down there. But everyone looks at when he does something like this. What's it setting up? Like you say, does he want to go to Florida State if that was ever a possibility? Does he want to be in the pros and starting, sort of jumping on the treadmill at 10 miles an hour instead of walking initially? What kind of experience is that?
Yeah, it may be nothing more than him wanting to coach his sons in college, and he didn't say that. He won't say that. Along the way, doing a good thing for historically Black college football. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nope. But I think it would be fascinating if he, if he moved up the ladder and tried to coach an FBS or a Power 5. Look, we have enough rogues and ne'er-do-wells in coaching that having Neon Dion, who speaks his mind and is accomplished as a player and then as a coach, great. Bring it on. I love quotable coaches.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing you could have in this experiment would be just the positive effect he's going to have on all those players. I mean, I don't see anything as far as a downside to this whole experience.
No. And he's willing to call BS on the system. I saw a video yesterday that I think the school put out. Someone had donated 2 like pickups, big trucks, like Ram something for them to use. I don't know. But during his speech where he mentioned, we're going to take care of you. We're going to get a new field. We're going to get a new locker room, all this stuff. He said, and don't forget, name, image, and likeness starts August 1st. And that's the projected date. It will. He said by 12:01 on August 1st, I promise you guys are going to get benefits. So I love that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It should be the case. It's legal.
No, you're absolutely right. Hey, I lied. Not the last thing. I wanted to ask you, what's going on in Kansas? I know not even the Les Miles situation. But, Jeff Long's out as athletic director. They're out a head coach. What are they doing?
It's a rudderless ship right now. It's a blank canvas. They're in the process of hiring an AD who will then hire a new football coach who would be, I think, the 5th since 2010. Turner Gill, Charlie Weiss, David Beatty, Les Miles, and then the new coach here in 2021. So that's 11 years they would have had 5 coaches. But yeah, Les got let go because of, alleged improprieties. Then Jeff Long got fired because I guess, the perception that he didn't vet Les enough. But you're right. This is a bigger story. Is there a common thread that runs through Kansas, one of the worst college football programs in the country, that they just keep stepping on their foot time after time? ADs, coaches, everything. Basketball takes care of itself.
Yeah.
But they need, as Bill Self would tell you, we need a football program that basketball can be proud of. He sees his peers taking recruits into 100,000 seat stadiums to enjoy a football Saturday. He doesn't have that. Yeah. So the answer to that is no, there isn't a common thread. It's just a series of unfortunate events, bad decision after bad decision, and they can't get this wrong. They'll fall further behind. Their facilities, Randy, aren't bad. Memorial Stadium on a football Saturday looks a lot like Cal, believe it or not, when you're up in the press box. It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
But they need somebody who can just get them to 6-6 and be respectable and get to a bowl. And we'll see that the upshot is, I should say, there are plenty of really talented, good people that want the job, both AD and coach. So if they don't screw it up, they'll get some really good people.
I'm not a big fan personally, Dennis, of aspiring to average.
I understand that.
But I guess early on, that's got to be where you kind of start.
You got to walk before you can run. And they don't run very fast right now.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for the update. Really appreciate you joining me, man.
You bet. Thanks, Randy.
All right. Talk to you later.
You will.
Well, yeah, thank you to Dennis Dodd. We're all a little bit smarter, and it's a great review of everything that's going on in the CBS Sports.com world and the sports world, college football specifically, in general. Let's check in with some of the other stuff going on in the world of sports. All right, we're going to kick things off in the world of sports. There's a lot of things going on. Well, it's a semi-major, so it's kind of, they call it the fifth major, but it's the Players' Championship. And it's down there in Ponte Vedra, Florida, just south of Jacksonville. Beautiful facility, as have the legendary 17th hole, the par 3 of the Island Green, where they torture professionals on a regular basis. But it in general was a wonderful tournament. It was won by Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas was 12 under on the weekend, only 2 under after Thursday and Friday. But on the money days, he played well. He was 8 under on Saturday, 4 under on Sunday. Sergio Garcia looked like he was going to be the guy to take away this trophy after Thursday when he was 7 under. But the rest of his tournament didn't quite work out like he planned. And this is not Happy Gilmore, so we don't take pictures with gigantic checks that we try to take to the bank. They just auto deposit the money and they give you a trophy, which are even nice enough to pack up in a nice big box and probably ship it to your house. But Justin Thomas wins $2.7 million for winning that particular tournament. Next up in sports, the NHL. NHL is hurtling towards the playoffs, doing a great job so far. It's going to be through May 8th for the regular season. And for the regular season, here are all your, semi-scientific guesses, as they say there in the note below NHL projections, how things are going to work out. That's the great thing about projections and doing things that might happen, kind of like odds to win. The Avalanche and the Knights are on top of that. Last year's winner, the Tampa Bay Lightning, are the number 3 team in that one. I kind of like Tampa Bay's chances, but I'm going to go with the Golden Knights, personally, to be the ones that take home the Stanley Cup playoff, that wonderful trophy. All the players' names are on it. That's something that's really special about the Stanley Cup and the NHL playoffs, is not only is the team memorialized, so are all the players on the team. And it goes back a long time. And everyone that wants to someday be an NHL player, they've got their draft coming up in late July. So keep an eye out for that one. Major League Baseball, speaking of sports that are this time of the year, Major League Baseball is going to be back. They're right now in spring training. You have to hear about the smell of cut grass, and I guess you can still smell it through that mask. But that's what baseball is associated with spring, which usually means when the games start, it's colder than hell at a lot of these places. So just be ready for that. They're going to go from spring training to winter-like conditions in some cities. But baseball is excited. It was a good year last year. It was all kinds of fun. I'd be a little paranoid and hesitant if I was opening on April Fool's Day, but hey, what the hell? Anything could happen April 1st, because that's when Major League Baseball is going to get their stuff back together. In the world of college football, I have to remind you, college football is still being played. These are the spring games. These are all the FCS teams that have decided from the fall that they didn't play, but they were going to play a spring schedule. Jackson State, they of Deion Sanders, beat Mississippi Valley State. That was a heck of a game. Jackson State again pulls out a 43-7 win. Kennesaw State off to a good start. They win their game 24-19 over Charleston State. University of Rhode Island pulls out an overtime win, 40-37 in overtime. Lamar down there in the beautiful state of Texas just edged out McNeese State 27-26. Sam Houston State opened up an entire can of whip butt on Nichols, 71-17. That's a little on the ugly side. And South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, beat Youngstown State, 19-17. Congratulations to all those winners. And just a reminder, you gotta keep a lookout for these games. It's going to be tough to find, but it's worth it. It's some really fun, top-level football. Speaking of top-level football, I've got two guys for you. The passing leader from last week, Eric Barriere from Eastern Washington. 35 of 50, 455 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And the rushing leader for the week was Donovan Spencer from Western Carolina. 27 carries, 220 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Congratulations, guys. Keep up the great work. Speaking of great work, how about the Dodo, one of my favorite sites on the internet, and their stories are epic.
This is the good news. This is the good news.
This one, which was found by my wife Patrice, is about Rockette, the raccoon. I won't ruin the story. Check it out.
A friend of ours had called. She said, "What do? I have this little tiny little baby raccoon that's just crawling around my garage door." And I said, "Let's just wait and see." 48 hours later, she calls me and she said it's still there. She maybe weighed a pound or 2, and she's got these humans looking at her. She was covered in fleas and dirt. I bathed her, flea combed her, put a treatment on her, dewormed her, and then set about figuring out what are we going to do. So I called the nearest wildlife shelters at that point, but because it was the pandemic, they said we can't take in anything right now. At that point, she needed to eat. She needed some sort of formula, so I got the kitten milk. After she got a little bit stronger, got a little bit healthier, she would just play with us and climb up us and then play with our hair.
We made a little den for her, which had like a bunch of old blankets. We set her down in her den, and in the middle of the night, she somehow found her way to my little sister and slept right next to my little sister.
I was getting a little bit nervous about the whole release part because I thought if she's this used to us, is she gonna ever really go?
Look at you!
That first night, off she went. And that's when she popped her head out of the hollow tree that's in the backyard. And I was like, oh my gosh, there you are. She moved 5 feet away into a tree and still comes back.
What are you gonna do?
She comes in and she checks out the selection of food for her that evening. And then she waits by the back door for the dogs. And I let the dogs out and they run around and chase each other and play. I have treats and they all line up and they all take their turns. She's part of the pack. She chooses to stay and be wild at the same time.
Back to the porch. Hi.
I look forward to her coming home every evening. It's really incredible.
Well, as always, thank you to the Dodo. Thank you to Rockette and Company. And I hope you enjoyed that. That's, humans, animals are good. Humans occasionally are good. All the humans at the Dodo are good. All right, where can you find the Randy Cross podcast? You can find it at a lot of places. Internet-wise, you got Twitter, you got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got SoundCloud, you got all those, iTunes, everything. Also, gruelingtruth.com and firedupnetwork.ca is another one where you can find this podcast. Hey, we always like to go away with, kind of a happy trails effect. Well, hey, y'all, watch this. By the way, hold my beer. Check it out.